and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. My name is Ishan Gera and here are the stories for the day. India is set to become the world's most populous country in a few months from now, or maybe it already is. Only the decadal census can confirm. It was scheduled for 2021, but the pandemic came in the way. And now the government is unlikely to go ahead with this massive exercise before the 2024 general elections. What are the implications of this delay? Bhaswar Kumar's report has the answers.
The centre is unlikely to conduct the decadal census before the next Lok Sabha polls in 2024. A government official told Business Standard that there was little time left to conduct the census in April next year, and that it was also unlikely to be held in 2024 since it would clash with the schedule for the general elections. The census is a gigantic exercise that is conducted in two phases. First, house listing is carried out, followed by population enumeration. The first phase provides data on housing conditions, household amenities, and assets of households. The second phase provides data on demography, religion, scheduled castes and tribes, language, literacy and education, economic activities, migration, and fertility. One of the major challenges involved is training around 3 million enumerators. They are the ones who visit houses in the two phases to collect data. In his last public statement on the census exercise, Union Home Minister Amit Shah had said that the next census would be a digital one. A census mobile app has also been developed, into which the enumerators will feed the data they collect. With new technology being introduced into the census process, it may take a lot of time to train the enumerators. All of this means that the census requires significant preparation. In fact, a second official told Business Standard that the census can't be conducted in 2023 even if it is notified now. Why? Because the weather is also a major factor. According to the official, the census can't be conducted during the rainy or winter season. Thus, states usually finish house listing in April and May because the monsoon arrives in many parts of India in June. The process of conducting the 2021 decadal census was due to begin in March 2020. But that was also the month when the COVID-19 pandemic hit India and it went into lockdown. As a result, the census was postponed indefinitely. The pandemic appears to have receded for now. The provisions of the Disaster Management Act, which were brought in for COVID containment and were seen as a hindrance in conducting the census, were withdrawn by the centre and states in March this year. But the centre has still not taken any action to conduct the much delayed census.
Other countries, US and UK, also had COVID, in some ways worse effects of COVID, and yet they had their census. So this is an unconscionable delay, unnecessary. If this year the people had been hired, the people could have been trained, then the process could have been actually speeded up. It could have been implemented this year itself. After all, elections were taking place.
Census data is crucial for framing public policy and evidence-based decision-making.
The census in and of itself doesn't give you the information for targeting. What the census does is that it forms the statistical frame in which sample surveys are carried out in order to determine the magnitude of a problem and consequent to that, the magnitude of the resources that are required. So what happens is that if the census is too far delayed, then the surveys that we do to find out these issues become that much more unreliable.
Evidence-based policy making is going to be undermined. The bottom line is the government is going to insist upon the poorest quality of data for its policy making, which are called administrative data. In other words, government generated administrative data. So, because there are three types of data: administrative data collected by government officers. The second type is sample survey, and the third is census. And the sample surveys design, as I said, is dependent upon the census.
Lack of up-to-date data in the hands of the government has a real impact on a lot of lives. In July, the Supreme Court had directed the centre to not restrict benefits under the National Food Security Act to only the people covered by the 2011 census. The Apex Court had also asked the government to factor in population projections in the absence of the 2021 census. The Act requires its coverage to be updated in accordance with the latest census figures.
I think the census data is useful not just as a policy instrument, but also something which gives you a better idea of what is happening in the country. And in fact, it is the only disaggregated information that is available at the village level. So it is used not just in academic research, but a lot of policy is basically based on this. Right from your NFSA, National Food Security Act, to various other entitlements are based on population estimates that are generated from census. The total number of households and population which is entitled based on the National Food Security Act for priority ration that they get is based on the 2011 census. And even if you just look at the numbers which have been projected, you come to the conclusion that roughly 100 million people are going to be excluded simply because we are using old population data.
Further delay in conducting the census will also prove problematic because the new state-wise population proportion affects everything, from the number of constituencies in parliament to the division of the common pool of taxes. In particular, it is imperative that the census be completed with enough time remaining for proper political deliberation before constituencies are delimited. Otherwise, the federal structure of India itself may come under pressure. The delimitation of assembly and parliamentary constituencies will take place in 2027. The current number of Lok Sabha and assembly seats remains frozen on the basis of the 1971 census. Census data is crucial for deciding the coverage of food subsidies, the delimitation of constituencies, and resource allocation. It is also central to all household-based surveys. Crucially, old data is being used at present for welfare programs. For all these reasons, the government should issue a timeline for the census as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, keeping pace with the rising population is India's dairy production. It was just 51 million tons in 1989-90, but touched 210 million tons in 2020-21. Milk production may have increased, but the prices have risen sharply too. What's behind the rise in milk prices this year? Tushar Verma brings the answer in our next report.
In February this year, Amul, in its signature doodle, took a jibe at the hike in fuel prices when petrol had touched 100 rupees a litre in some states. And at the bottom of the cartoon, a phrase read, Amul affordable taste. But 10 months on, the inflation has hit the dairy sector too. It has forced most dairy cooperatives to jack up the prices of milk. Cost of 1 litre full cream Amul milk is now 63 rupees. And this is despite the fact that India is the world's largest producer of milk. 23% of the world's milk is produced here. But the domestic demand for milk has also increased from 199 million tons in 2021 to 203.49 million tons in 2022 so far. While India's milk market is growing, why have the milk prices increased recently?
In years where you do not have a great production or you have abnormal weather conditions, and there's a shortage of milk, the price shoots up. This year, however, there are a couple of reasons why prices have shot up. It is definitely because of the increase in the fuel and the fodder prices. And it is also been coupled with the demand that has come back after COVID. So both of these factors have led to a shortage and cost increase, and the milk prices have been increasing.
The profit obtained from selling milk and milk products largely flows back to the dairy farmers. Has the private sector then managed to enter into better contracts with farmers than the cooperatives?
Now, if the cooperatives are increasing the price, it's not because private dairies are increasing the prices. It's just because they are all fighting for a limited milk pool, which is available in the country or in the region where they operate. So I don't think it would be fair to say that the price increase has anything to do with private versus cooperative dairies. Rather than this time, it is a lot to do with inflation.
Cost of milk production increases with the cost of cattle fodder. This year's wholesale price index or WPI-based fodder inflation was at a whopping 25% high. Consequently, this affected dairy marketing companies like Amul and Mother Dairy. However, Amul MD R.S. Sodhi says the inflation of milk and milk products prices in India is lowest in the world.
Milk or milk products inflation in the last 2 years in India is minimum over the world. Or most of the countries where they never had inflation in the milk and milk product like Europe, USA or other developed countries, their price increase in the milk is around 15 to 30%. And India is around 8% per annum. So India's milk inflation is the minimum in the world. Even in India, inflation in the milk price is minimum in all the food basket.
Reasons for fodder inflation are multifold. Irregular monsoon with high rains in some parts and dry spell in others dealt a damaging blow to fodder crops. Between July to September, 20 lakh got infected with lumpy skin disease and 97,000 died. The spread of this viral infection further compounded milk production costs. Only 1/3 of the entire dairy sector is in the formal sector, and the rest 2/3 is unorganized and open for both cooperatives and the private sector to capture. So where is the Indian dairy sector heading?
So there is an incredible amount of opportunity that the dairy sector has. More and more as health, hygiene, safety is becoming forefront in every mother's and every parent's mind, they are preferring to switch to safer processed milk. We have estimated in CII that approximately we can look at 100,000 crore investment in the coming 10 years in the dairy sector. Over the last few years, we have been noticing a significant uptick in the investment that is going into the dairy sector, both from cooperatives and private dairies. And we are extremely hopeful that this trend should continue.
The key to tap into this large unorganized sector is supply chain. So it all boils down to one thing: who can keep both consumers and farmers happy?
Competition is welcome, and there is cooperative and private are working in the market, both in procurement side and in market together, because there is enough room for everybody. Only 1/3 of Indian dairy market is organized, and dairy product market is growing at a double-digit volume growth. So there is an opportunity, whether for cooperative or private, for everybody. There is a room. Only thing in Indian dairy market is basically a supply chain efficiency market. So the companies, whether cooperative or private, those who are able to have a very efficient supply chain, wherein they can give good price to the farmers, another side very good product at affordable price to the consumer, they'll be able to succeed or survive.
Sodhi also highlighted that he does not expect the milk prices to come down in 2023.
In the coming commodity prices, non-dairy product commodity prices started softening because it has gone 30-40%. But milk price increase only per annum 8%. So I don't see any softening in the prices because input cost is not reducing. It has increased 20-25%.
However, the inflation in milk and milk products is lower in comparison to the food commodities, and the prices are not expected to come down soon.
oil prices may only be moving upwards, but crude oil is behaving differently. Brent crude prices topped the $120 per barrel mark in June and then dropped to a low of $75 in early December as they juggled between recession fears and a price cap on Russian oil. In the following report, Puneet Wadhwa tells us what will guide oil prices in 2023.
The oil markets remained tight in calendar year 2022 as demand exceeded supply. While Brent crude prices topped $120 per barrel mark earlier in 2022, analysts believe prices could have been higher had oil reserves from the Special Petroleum Reserves and OECD inventories not been released, and if China had not been in lockdown all around 2022. For now, a host of factors have been holding up prices. For one, OPEC and its allies decided to cut production by 2 million barrels November onwards. Second, the Group of 7 or G7 countries, along with the European Union and Australia, have agreed to set a limit on the price of Russian oil at $60 per barrel. This, along with the ban on Russian seaborne crude oil, has cut oil supply by another 2.2 million barrels per day. Against these developments, how does 2023 look for oil markets? Paul Hicken of S&P Global Commodity Insight thinks the year could see significant volatility in the energy market.
The oil market in 2023 is likely to show a lot of volatility, continuing that trend from 2022. Three big known unknowns are likely to dominate market sentiment and create that volatility. The first of all is Russia. Now, from a Commodity Insights perspective, we see Russia sanctions supply losses peaking at 1.5 million barrels a day versus pre-war levels by February 2023. But Russia's sanctions uncertainties are very high, given issues around enforcement, tankers, and who will continue buying, and how the grey market will operate in that sense. Second is China. Everyone through 2022 was talking about demand coming back from China at some point when lockdowns end. But there's been no signs of lockdown ending, and from when we talk right now, that's still the status quo of huge lockdowns in China, and that is a big blow for commodity demand and oil demand. And add that to the whole global economic weakness and recession, this is going to be the second big factor shaping the markets and buffeting the oil market around. And thirdly, how OPEC Plus responds to this, and OPEC itself responds. We've already seen production cuts from OPEC, but there is a tension between the consumer side and the US, and how much they're comfortable with high prices, and how much OPEC Plus is looking at the fundamentals and looking at potentially putting some kind of floor under the market. As
analysts believe Brent crude may hover in the price range of $80 to $110 per barrel in 2023. Those at JP Morgan, for instance, see Brent prices averaging $90 per barrel in the year ahead. The price forecast rests on the belief that OPEC Plus alliance will do the heavy lifting to keep markets balanced next year. Besides, supply will grow at 30% above the pace demand in 2022 as Russian production fully normalizes. Also, supplies from conventional players like Brazil, Norway, and Guyana, along with non-conventional ones like the US, Canada, Argentina, may add 1.6 million barrels per day. Paul Hicken, however, sees oil a tad lower.
We see oil prices in a volatile range around the $85 a barrel mark through 2023. Without doubt, prices will jump above that and below that, but that looks like an area for prices.
Meanwhile, markets will track the US Federal Reserve's monetary policy meeting this week. Back home, foreign fund flow, oil prices, IPO of Sula Vineyards, inflation data will guide investors' sentiment.
"5G services were rolled out in some cities last month. Coverage is still patchy and not everyone has a compatible mobile phone. But 5G technology is still being talked about. One of the key features of this advanced technology that everyone is waiting for is network slicing. Our following report tells us what it is.
Network slicing is a concept where a single spectrum band is sliced to create multiple virtual networks so that many application requirements can run using the same network. Through network slicing, multiple networks can exist on the same shared physical network. Simply put, network slicing allows operators to offer parts of a single network to different customers based on their use cases. Network slicing is one of the most innovative technologies in 5G as it optimizes a single network for multiple use cases. For instance, network requirements for streaming HD video could be different from, say, for Internet of Things factories. With multiple virtual networks that will be created through network slicing, both these use cases can be run using the same physical network. Also, multiple use cases require different latency, security, and configuration. In network slicing, each slice contains its own unique latency, security, and bandwidth characteristics. Hence, it preserves resources by understanding the context and use case for each application and appropriately assigning the correct amount of resources. Network slicing ensures that a single network is efficiently used and managed, resulting in revenue maximization for operators as they offer captive private networks as a service to enterprises. According to Ericsson, network slicing enables business model innovation and use cases across all verticals, creating new revenue opportunities for communication service providers. Further, slicing ensures service flexibility and ability to deliver services faster with high security, isolation, and applicable characteristics. As per the required use case, network operators can give just the right amount of resources as per the network slice. For example, one network slice can be designed to offer low speeds and low data, while another network slice can be offered to give high throughput. This enables effective utilization of resources. Effective utilization of resources means that operators can reduce expenses and cut additional spending on CapEx. Network slicing also improves operational efficiency and time to market for the delivery of 5G network services.
I will achieve, I will fly high. I am the TMSEp322.
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.
Network slicing will also benefit consumers by improving the quality and reliability of consumer-facing applications and enabling services such as the Internet of Things. That's all for today. For more news and analysis, please log on to business-standard.com. We'll be back tomorrow with our next episode. Thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.